Good evening. I'd like to convene this regular meeting of the City Council at 7:15. Would you all rise and join with me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the agenda. Councilor Nodell.
President Wright, I move that we amend and adopt our agenda as follows. First, add to the agenda item 2.02, a resolution condemning hate speech from the full City Council. Note, final version of Assistant City Attorney Hassler's communication for consent agenda item 4.07, communication Richard Hassler, Assistant City Attorney, regarding FY 2018 City of Burlington TIF District reports to the Vermont Economic Progress Council. And there's going to be a motion on this after I complete these. There will be another action relating to this consent agenda item 4.07. Note, written materials and proposed action for consent agenda item 4.12, communication Kirsten Merriman Shapiro, Senior Policy and Project Specialist, CEDO, and Laura K. Relock, PE, Senior Public Works Engineer, regarding Great Streets, St. Paul Street, construction contract and budget amendment per CAO Anderson. Remove from consent agenda item 4.14, the communication from the CEDO Director about the CEDO Director market factor adjustment per Chief of Staff Riddell. Note, written materials for agenda items 5.03 and 5.04 regarding Municipal Development Plan 1901-2019 per Megan Tuttle. Remove from the consent agenda item 4.16, ordinance, comprehensive development ordinance, commercial uses in the ELM zone, ZA number 19-07, Planning Department, Planning Commission, first reading, place it on the deliberative agenda as item 5.06 per Councilor Mason. And now I believe Councilor Jang has a further amendment on the agenda.
Thank you, Councilor Nodell. Councilor Jang.
I would like to make a motion to move item 4.7 from the consent agenda to the deliberative agenda.
Yes, and Councilor Jang and I discussed this, and he would like to place it at 5.07. That is consent agenda item 4.07, moving on to deliberative at 5.07.
Oh, second.
Okay, thank you. So consent item 4.07 will now be deliberative 5.07.
That's correct.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded by Councilor Busher. Is there further amendments or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the agenda as amended, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We have our agenda. Okay, item number 2 is in an unusual place tonight. Presidential comments. And really what this is we are all in on this little secret. And we basically want to honor and celebrate Councilor Busher tonight at the start of the meeting. Councilor Busher has worked at our hospital in Burlington for an incredible half century. And that half a century ended last night. And Councilor Hartnett is bringing up a cake that I encourage everybody to take a piece of it. And Councilor Busher, I'm just going to say a couple quick things, and I'm going to invite if anyone wants to come up and say a couple words also. But Councilor Busher has been as dedicated at the hospital, has been as dedicated in work at the hospital for 50 years as she has been on the City Council for over 30 years. She's been a dedicated public servant, and we all know what incredible work she puts in to her job here on the City Council and the incredible work that she does for us here in the city. There's nobody quite like Councilor Busher. And so we are all now giving her a rose to dedicate her service and thank her.
Thank you so much for doing that. Oh, my God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chet. Oh,
Wonderful.
thank you very much. Moreau. Thank you. Thank you. Short people. Now, yes, thank you, Marie. Thank you so much. Brian.
Councilor, cake for everybody, we'll cut it.
Yes. And we're going to open up to a few comments from councilors, as well as I said, if anybody, constituent, friend, or department head wants to say a few words about Councilor Busher, we're open to that. And Councilor Hartnett is putting the huge sheet cake over here in the corner, so we encourage everybody to get a piece of cake on Councilor Busher to celebrate her 50 years. So that's... And as I said, her time on the council has been equally as impressive, and her dedication to the city as her dedication to her work at the hospital. Councilor Pine.
Sure. I think there's probably nobody at this table that was there for Sharon's first campaign. I was her campaign manager in 1987. And she impressed everyone she met going door to door because she actually went door to doors in the way we tell candidates not to go to doors, which is to spend 5 to 10 minutes at each door. Because you're really supposed to spend, some say a couple of minutes, because you want to hit every door, but Sharon just worked that much harder to meet and talk with every single voter she could meet. And she engaged with them in a way that was so genuine and so compassionate and wanting to understand what their issues were and what she could do to help people that it was really clear that Sharon, Burlington she must bleed blue and white because Burlington is in her blood. And the City Council has been blessed to have Sharon's expertise and perspective and incredible dedication and compassion, and Burlington is lucky to have you. Thanks.
Any other councilor? Councilor Mason.
Thank you, President Wright. I was not there in 1987, Sharon, but it has been, I can only speak to the last 7 years serving with you on the Ordinance Committee, and I have to confess I'm a little worried of what you're going to do with all this extra time because
We're all worried.
you certainly, you are the most prepared every meeting, and you force me as the chair and the rest of us to try and stick up with you or be able to engage with you, and I'm concerned if, with a full-time job, you were able to put that much in, what it's going to be like going forward. So I hope I'm up to that challenge. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Councilor Mason. Councilor Hartnett, and then Councilor Roof.
Thank you. As Councilor Mason just said, nobody more ready to go for a city council meeting and have everything ready in order. And that's why Councilor Hartnett sits next to her. But Councilor Busher was the first city councilor I ever voted for in Ward 1. And I was represented my mom for over 30 years. And the relationship that has developed between our family and Councilor Busher has been incredible. And I'll just finish by telling you this story. It was Christmas season, last year, and it was busy and everything going on. Everybody's out there shopping, getting things done, and I'm downtown with my wife. When we're walking up Church Street, my cell phone rings. It's like 5:30 on a Saturday. It's Councilor Busher. And I'm like, oh, she's prepared, but this is a little early. But I answered, and she just said to me, I'm only calling for one reason, that I know this will be your last Christmas on 75 Brooks Avenue. My mom is moving after 58 years, and I know it's hard, and I know it's difficult for your family, and I want to let you know that I'm thinking of you guys, and I'm really going to miss you. And that just goes to who Councilor Busher really is as a person. And really, truly, we have been blessed in this city to have her services for nearly over 30 years. So Councilor Busher, thank you from the bottom of my heart, not only from me, but my entire family. Thank you.
Councilor Roof.
We all have a moment or many moments that Councilor Busher has wowed us or made us smile. Mine was she texted me right before, she texted me before Christmas to wish me a happy holiday. And I was grateful for the message, but also impressed by the medium that you shared that message. I also want to read, I was talking with former Councilor Adrian today, and let him in on the secret, and he asked me to read a short statement, and I actually echo what Ed has to say here. He apologizes for not being here to make the meeting, but Councilor Busher's trajectory on the council has impacted me personally in ways she will never know. I am deeply and personally thankful for her stewardship. It recently came to my attention that Sharon is retiring from UVM after 50 years of service in that forum. Sharon's dedication and determination obviously carries over with everything she engages in. Best wishes to Councilor Busher now and in the days ahead. The good news, Ed says, is that now she is free to attend more city council meetings than ever and continue her advocacy on behalf of the residents, the lucky residents of Ward 1.
Thank you, Councilor Roof. I just have to add to that story that Councilor Busher told me that she texted me a holiday message, but she never did. So I looked and it wasn't there. She sent it to a different phone. Councilor Nodell.
Thank you, President Wright. I wanted to talk about Sharon's work at the hospital, because Sharon managed the blood bank at the hospital. And this is an extremely important job. And she brought to that the same attention to detail, the same complete preparedness, 100% dedication she brought to that she brought to the city council. And whenever I had family had to go in for procedure, I was never worried about whether the blood was going to be in good shape. And so that is an incredible service that you provided. And I just hope that in the future it will be as good. I trust it will. I know you've done everything to make sure that it continues to be top notch. But thank you very, very much. The whole community wants to thank you. Well done, Sharon.
Thank you, Councilor Nodell. Any other councilor? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, President Wright. It's been interesting to hear the other reactions here. Councilor Roof's comment reminds me of the discovery we made in the mayor's office when we learned that Councilor Busher had a cell phone. Was a major milestone in our communications with Councilor Busher. I also need to echo Councilor Mason's sentiment from a slightly different perspective of now I think will be the first of 4 mayors that gets to serve with Councilor Busher when she is not managing the blood bank and taking on other responsibilities for the hospital. And I, too, am concerned about what that portends for the future, given her attention to the detail and incredible rigor. But I say that jokingly, of course, in that it's actually I have the greatest respect for the perspective and the diligence that Councilor Busher brings to the work, and the idea that we are going to get to maybe even work more together in some sense in the months ahead with your professional duties changing is exciting. I want to congratulate you on a remarkable achievement to be with one organization for 50 years is rare and stunning achievement in 2019, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Weinberger. Anyone else? Anybody in the audience? Any constituent of Sharon's? Sandy?
Sharon and I go way back. We were in the same college class together, so congratulations, Sharon. I've
Thank
known
you.
you, a little bit longer than some of these folks, but now that you're free, let's have coffee.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Once again, Councilor Busher, thank you for your incredible service to the city and to the hospital. And we can never express fully how much it means to all of us. Councilor Busher, would you like to say a few words?
Just a couple.
That'll be a first.
I know. Okay, all right. But I'm totally surprised by this, and it's not often that you get recognized in a different arena for a job that you've done elsewhere. But it is a continuum, I think, of service and healthcare and city government. There's so much in common with that, being responsive to people's needs and trying to do the best and making sure that you do it right. But this recognition is very special to me. I think that we all do our jobs and perform, contribute to our community because we feel we want to or we need to, and we want to either do that to lend a helping hand or to affect change. I don't think we ever do it to get recognized, but having said that, when somebody takes the time to say, we noticed you cared, we noticed you did a good job, it's very significant. So I want to thank you all for that recognition. It's very meaningful.
All right. With that, we will move on to some other business, but please, everybody, do take a piece of cake. There's a lot of cake over there. So we will move forward and open the public forum up tonight. I do just want to make sure that I want to make a little statement. We're obviously open to hearing whatever anybody has to say to us. All we ask that it's done in a respectful way, that there is no kind of personal attacks or hate speech of any kind. We don't expect that anyway, but there have been some emails that we've been concerned about, and I just want to make that really clear that we always want to hear what you have to say to us, your opinions, and we will listen respectfully, and we just want to make sure that the comments are also made respectfully, directed through me and in a respectful way, and no personal attacks or really pointing out anyone's name on the council, including the mayor. So with that, I will open the public forum and start with Samuel. Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. I think I'd go first. Is this for volume or for?
Yes, it is. So please pull the microphone right in close to you so we can hear, and so Channel 17
Okay,
picks it up.
great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. And I appreciate the opportunity to present to City Council tonight. I'm a new resident of Burlington, and what a lovely first meeting to attend. So congratulations to Councilwoman Bouchard, and that was just really sweet. And I feel like this is a pretty unique meeting to have a cake. I'm here because I'm concerned about a proposal regarding the Burlington Bike Share program. There was an announcement just on Front Porch Forum that said the DPW was looking at greatly expanding the bike share program and also including electronic scooters. Or electric scooters. So I'm here to talk about electric scooters. I did send an email to quite a few people today in the City Council and City government related to both safety, transportation planning, and risk management. So basically I'll just read a shorter version of what I emailed to people, and if anybody wants it, because there's also some attachments at the bottom for some links with information about these types of scooters. I'm also here tonight because tomorrow is when the meeting is, but it was just advertised as sort of a meet and mingle and hear the proposal. It was not advertised as a place for public input or a public forum. And also because of the snowstorm, I'm not sure if I'll make it or not. So I wanted to use this opportunity to make sure that, I was also invited by a city council member to make sure that this went into the public record. So I do believe that the electronic scooters would really be a disaster for Burlington. And let me just tell you a little background about them if they're not high on your radar, if you don't even know what I'm talking about. The electronic scooters are like basically skateboards with steering column that people ride around. And they are a system similar to the bike share where they are just placed around the city. And people use an app on their phone to get into it, and then they zip around and they pick them up on the sidewalk and they drop them off on the sidewalk. A few months ago, my partner and I visited Santa Monica, California, and we were really overwhelmed by the presence of these scooters there. We had to dodge them on the sidewalks, and we were essentially run off the beautiful bike path that ran along the beach. We also then saw them in piles littering the sidewalk, because when they're not in use, they live on the sidewalk. When I posted something just on my Facebook travelogue, friends from all around the country voiced that they were having problems in their towns too. E-scooters, which are motorized, quiet, and zippy, have started to be seen in cities across the country, and they're being met with tremendous controversy and consternation wherever they are. At issue is aspect for safety for riders, bicyclists, pedestrians, and motorists. So many injuries have been reported, along with reckless or intoxicated or simply unskilled driving. Oh no. Shoot. I didn't know I only had that amount of time.
You can finish if it's,
okay.
within the next half minute.
I will just say that, many cities have banned them, and Los Angeles is considering a ban. They're also in San Francisco, they were dubbed Wheelmageddon. If you Google Wheelmageddon, you'll get lots of information about it. And I want us to be able to learn from what other cities have discovered, which that there really needs to be proper planning in advance. So to be clear, e-scooters make cities less walkable and safe. People are hurt on them and by them. They create more traffic to dodge on the streets, sidewalks, and bike paths, creating risks for the public. When parked, they encroach on public space for walking. They are just living on the sidewalks, and when their juice runs out, they become large piles of metal litter on the sidewalks. I'm not proposing a ban or that we think about a ban. Bans are very emotional, and this is an emotional issue in all the cities where they come. So I want us to slow down the process to include input and planning and assessment and not just dump them on the streets, which is what has happened in other cities around the country. People wake up and suddenly there are 1,000 scooters on the streets. They are dangerous and a hazard, and I'd like to be sure that we do due diligence in terms of our planning.
Thank you, Mr. Lutz. Thank you very much.
Thanks for giving me the extra minute.
Barb Alsop, and my apologies because I did not indicate that there is a light there in front of you. When the red light goes off, your time is up and you can finish your sentence or two. There's a light before that that indicates you have about a minute left. But Barb Alsop is up next. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, and congratulations to the city councilor for her wonderful service to the city and to the hospital. I'm here because when I was here a couple weeks ago, I learned for the first time, probably because I haven't been paying much attention, that the design for the City Hall Park was prepared by the spouse of a city employee, and that spouse was paid a fair amount of money, and it was a no-bid contract. Now, my career was in law. And I see something like that and bells and whistles go off in my head. And it's not the first time I have heard concerning things about no-bid contracts in this city. And I would simply propose a probably costly solution. I think we should have an ethics officer in this city to review all contracts, because this should never have happened. If it happened in any state government office, if it happened in the federal system, it would be cause for revocation of that that contract. We have to do better. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Alsop. Charles Simpson is up next, to be followed by Ron Robar. Good evening, Mr. Simpson. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, and congratulations, Councilperson Busher. Well, I'm speaking on behalf of the Pine Street Coalition, a civic group with a particular interest in safe streets. And I'm also a member of the Citizens Advisory Group for the Winooski Corridor Study. I'm speaking on an issue that's not actually on the agenda, but it's ontological, cosmological, metaphysical. It's all about life and death. And that has to do with street safety. First, Burlington isn't doing well in the safe streets category. We average about 1,200 vehicle crashes a year, 90% of which result in property damage only. Main to Pearl on Winooski is proportionally the most crash-intensive roadway. Burlington generates 151 personal injuries each year, affecting 1,500 households every decade. This is based on city data covering 2013 to 2017. We can do better. There's a clear hierarchy of safety at intersections. Signals are the worst, and thus the least desirable. At $150,000 to install and $5,000 a year to maintain, they are also the most expensive way to treat intersections. Stop signs are safer and clearly cheaper, but the safest is the roundabout. Fortunately, we have empirical proof. Taking Vermont's 3 roundabouts in Montpelier, Manchester Center, and Middlebury, they have been in place for a total of 52 years. In that time, there's been 0 bicycle injuries, 1 pedestrian injury, and 4 minor injuries to car occupants. Compare that to Burlington's 151 personal injuries on the roads each year. Across the U.S., roundabouts reduce crashes by 35% and injury crashes by 76%. That's a Quebec study. Why? Because the design eliminates head-on and right-angle collisions, and it slows speed. Roundabouts have essentially 0 maintenance costs. If they're used as visual focal points for drivers entering Burlington at Main and Winooski, or at I-89 at Pine, they provide a platform for greenery or sculpture and a physical transition to city streets and city speeds. A mini roundabout can be constructed for about $50,000, a third the cost of signaled intersections. One key roundabout we advocate is at Pine and I-189, which would slow traffic, provide a needed second outlet to South Burlington from the South District, and a gateway fixture for those entering the city, and would likely cost considerably more than the $50,000 because it's a complex and wide intersection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Messing. Ronald Robart. What did I say? Mr. Simpson, my apologies. Mr. Robar. No, you're up. I'm messing everybody up here. Mr. Robar, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Ronnie Robar. I'm a lifetime resident of Burlington, 29 Algard Street for the last 57 years of my life. I can't tell you how much I want to thank you people, especially from Ward 4, and I mean this from the heart. Dave Hartnett, we're finally going to get an ambulance on Station 4. Are you guys serious? It's been all this time for Stage 4 to finally get an ambulance. Do you realize how many angels, not people, angels that have died and passed away waiting for engine 1, 2, 3, or ambulance 1 from Main and South Winooski Avenue? Over 40 years, ma'am, sir. Call it what you want. Are you guys for real? Why did it take so long? But first of all, I want to tell you thank you. I have lost many, many friends, angels. We're finally going to get that quick response. Because the time the guys, and it's nothing bad about the response, their hats off to them. But when you go to the Racine and they say, I'm only a stretcher carrier, Mr. Robar, I only can do what I want, that gets me crazy. So hats off to you guys, city councilmen, whoever was involved in this, thank you. And I mean this, thank you. From guys like Gary Carey, 24-year veteran, waiting for that ambulance to come for his last breath. Moses Robar, his wife put 43 years in Birchwood Nursing Home full time, and she's been screaming it forever. It's time to put an ambulance on North Ave, Mayor. I know everything's a cost. Don't tell me about that foolishness, because I'm a 20-year veteran, full-time military vet, 79 to 97, and I got out because my son died of cancer. And now I had Paul Robar just die from Benway's Taxi. But I want to say thanks to Dave Hartnick personally. I love you. I grew up with you. And I want to say thank you. It's my first time ever being here. And I had one more suggestion for the city, and they don't take common sense. Do it, and do it now. Church and Cherry has been vacant for many years. That little substation. Put Burlington PD down there. They need them. Presents. Put a light up there that says Burlington PD. Don't make them officers run up and down that street and be all wet. Donate that little substation. They need it. Those are our first response. And I want to say like that. Think about giving that Church and Cherry, that little spot, that hut to the Burlington Police Department. Please, they need it. And first of all, and I was trying to end like this. Thank you, Mr. Hartnick. And we're going to lose a good councilman, I heard of April. No one's going to fill his shoes and speak for the public like Dave Hartnick, because he's a homeboy, like Mr. Wright is. So people, think about it, common sense. And thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Robar.
Thank you for that ambulance. Thank you.
Charlie Messing is the final speaker that I have signed up.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Robar. Good evening, Mr. Messing. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. It's really funny to keep coming back here. Brian, Ollie, Sharon, Dave, Joan, Kurt. I can almost read it. Mr. Dean. Mr. Dean? That's Mr. Dean. We've been corresponding in Front Porch Forum, or jousting, whatever you call it. But Joan, Karen, Adam, Mr. Mayor, or do I say Moreau? Anyway, everybody, I know I've used up a lot of time saying that, but that's okay because I'm speaking briefly on something. The credibility of the city and the city council, occasionally it's at stake. Do you believe us? Do you trust us? We know what we're doing, all that stuff. I remember something about reconnecting St. Paul Street, which of course at this point would be dead-ending at the exit of the bus terminal. I can't see a point in doing that, but we've committed that. I think we even are paying money for that. And Pine Street. We're reconnecting Pine Street. I live on the corner of Pine Street and College Street. I see the Free Press building every day. It's at the end of Pine Street. It's blocking the reconnection of Pine Street. If you don't get rid of that building, how in the world are you going to put a street through there, which will then dead end at Pearl Street? But it ain't going to happen. There's no street that's going to go down into that. Somebody told me it's going to go down into the parking garage and then up the other side. Can't work. Going an S-curve, excuse me. I should know better. Yes, well, unless that building disappears or grows a hole I'm not going to believe that it's getting reconnected. And that lack of connection is the lack of connection between me and the credibility that you all have in running the city. Wish you luck. May all your decisions be even better in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Megan Epler-Wood is up next, to be followed by Karen Long. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here and share some of my thoughts with you this evening. I'm really coming in the spirit of the rally outside, I must admit, but I will keep it nice and calm. I've participated now in about 10 public meetings since the Weinberger administration began to take existing assets of our city and convert them to a combination of office, residential, and public space, which is being redesigned without full public consensus. In addition, as we know, the mayor has led the charge on privatizing Burlington Telecom, something that I was deeply involved in. All of these efforts have been supported by a majority of the City Council. In my view, these decisions lack proper investigation into the long-term outcomes for our own city and are leaving our citizens without adequate ownership in our redevelopment. Now, some of you may think that this kind of statement is almost anti-capitalist, but I assure you it's not. I teach and do research on socially responsible business, urban planning, and sustainable development at Harvard and Cornell. I was just in Edinburgh, Scotland, to present at the highest levels at their city on managing their urban renewal. I was there for a week. I met with every major decision maker of the city, including many of their business leaders and also a lot of their academics. They're restoring their building stock and making a full transition to fossil fuel-free region. They have extensive consultation with citizens that's built into their system and are creating a future institute at Edinburgh University that will drive digital decision-making for their city to be sure, which I don't believe we have a clue here, is social, economic, and environmental benefits that will come home to roost for our local citizens. I don't see these kinds of decision-making processes happening here. And I'm very concerned about it as a citizen, as someone who knows on a global basis what sustainability means and what it does not mean, and what types of consultations it actually takes to achieve it. So, and I have really seen a lack of interest from our mayor and from City Council on bringing our proposals that have homegrown talent forward. So, to summarize, we now see a crisis with the town center, and we are sure to see issues with Burlington Telecom, in my opinion, which has yet to see approval via our Public Utility Commission. It's being held up by lawsuits, and I really question whether our town center or Burlington Telecom will end up in hands completely divorced from our fair city's best interests. Now, you all may believe that they will, and I can see the blankness in your eyes. I can see it. And I'm sorry that they're blank at this point. I really, really am. Because I think that the city is putting us in jeopardy with these kinds of business relationships. Okay, so I'm just saying, it's somewhat political, it is time to reevaluate these types of decisions by the City Council and Mayor, who are so eager to sell off our assets without reliable owners, and who fail to use enlightened analysis of how to both invest in homegrown talent and come out winners. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Epler-Wood. Karen Long is the final speaker now. Good evening, Ms. Long. Welcome.
Hi. Yeah, I was not going to speak because I am pretty frustrated with this group. I've spoken many times with spent hours preparing what I'd say, and I feel like nobody or very few people will listen. But I was sort of inspired because of the gentleman that spoke about the scooters, the electric scooters. And I've always felt that Burlington could learn from other communities that try these things, and then we do them anyway and spend a lot of money. But I've just spent 6 weeks traveling in the United States, and I witnessed the scooters, and I know that we have a gentleman from the New North End that has been trying to get the electric bicycles off the bike path, because our bike path is not really very large and wide for people that go with their children. I was a coach for the high school for 8 years, and we used to run on the bike path. And when kids were, and this is high school, And when people go by with, even really fast bikers are really dangerous. And so I just think that these are things we need to look at and not jump ahead. I didn't even know that we're considering doing that. But I know that I felt frustrated that Locomotion is involved with the electric bicycles. They make money on, renting them. So I hope that we're not going to jump into that. So that really bothers me, and I feel like with the City Hall Park, I wasn't here when you guys voted 6-6 to not put that on the ballot, which is frustrating to me because a lot of people wanted that on the ballot. But one of the problems I have with the park is the money and the fact that our sidewalks are really bad, and I've talked to a lot of people about this over the years. We got horrendous sidewalks, and we're going to spend, first it was going to be $3 million. Today I heard that the bids came in at $5.2 million and $6 million to do the work on the park. I mean, it's crazy. We can't afford it. We've got a park that should have grass, in my opinion, and I know that a lot of it's been damaged by the farmers market, but if you go to other places in the United States and in Europe, they use parking lots, plazas for these street fairs, not turn grass, and then complain that it's all packed down. So, I mean, that's just like a impractical thing that you guys are pushing forward, and I also have understood that the design alone, we've spent $750,000 designing this. I mean, is that correct? Is that like a rumor, or is that the price that so far we have invested in the park? Yes, no? I don't know. Anyway, my understanding was we started this park idea because Mr. Pomerleau gave us $500,000. And maybe I'm wrong, I do go to a lot of city meetings, but if that's the case, I don't understand how we can go from a $500,000 gift and spend $750,000 on just designing a park that now could cost $6 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Long. And that concludes tonight's public forum. And we will go back to item 2.2. First, we're going to do the consent agenda. So item number 4 is the consent agenda. Councilor Nodell.
President Wright, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as amended and take the actions indicated.
Seconded by Councilor Busher. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda and taking the actions indicated, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have passed the consent agenda. And now we will go back to item 2.02, which was added to the agenda earlier today. And that is a resolution condemning hate speech from the full city council. Councilor Mason.
Thank you, President Wright. I'd like to actually read the resolution and then ask for the floor back briefly after a second.
Seconded by Councilor Paul. Councilor Mason, you have the floor back.
Thank you, President Wright. So let me just read the proposed resolution. Reads, whereas the City of Burlington is an inclusive community welcoming residents and visitors of all races, ethnicities, religions, genders, abilities, sexual orientations, sexual identities. And whereas the United States and Vermont constitutions and federal, state, and local laws and ordinances protect the rights of Burlington residents and visitors. And whereas on the night of Monday, February 4th, 2019, posters, banners, and stickers communicating loathsome, hate-filled attack messages were deliberately posted within view at Burlington organizations, including the Ojave Zedek Synagogue, Outright Vermont, and the Pride Center of Vermont. Whereas the posters and banners listed the name of a group called the Patriot Front, identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a white supremacist group, as the organization responsible. And whereas a hate-inspired attack against the dignity and rights of any Burlington resident or visitor is an attack against all Burlington residents and visitors. Now therefore be it resolved that the Burlington City Council fully and emphatically repudiates and condemns the individuals and organizations that on the night of February 4th, 2019, criminally posted banners and posters expressing hateful anti-LGBTQIA, anti-Semitic, and racist sentiments, and be it further resolved that the Burlington City Council repudiates and condemns all speech, acts, and verbal assaults that include messages of hate against any member of our Burlington community. So with that, I first want to express appreciation for the full council sort of moving quickly. This sort of happened after our usual deadline, but in discussions, and I note, last week seemed to be for many of us sitting at this table a particularly thoughtful week. I know many of us were up at UVM hearing the women program that was early Wednesday, and then through our bias training on Friday, it was something we were topic, and then for this to happen, we live in challenging times, starting with individual one and working their way down. I think it's important for us to continue to step up and take a position that this is not okay. It's very easy to just, it becomes part of what happens daily. And I thank the council for stepping up now and saying this is not okay here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mason. Other councilors that wish to speak on this? Councilor Jang.
Yeah, thank you. I think this resolution speaks to, there are a couple of things here in this community that we should not tolerate, that we should not let be, and I think Councillor Mason did, made it very clear, because anybody here around this table, we deeply care about all members of society. We deeply care. When we attack someone among us, we attacking everybody else. But I think it's important for us to also be consistent in two ways. We cannot have this type of resolution to respond to some type of actions while we leave a mural here in the middle of downtown. And we are the one who actually decided to leave the mural there. I think it's important if we want to really work on healing, if we want to work on bringing people together, consistency matters in all angles. The other point, the resolution, no one will say we will vote against it because it's hate and we have to respond. But at the same time, we have processes. And our processes is if you want to bring a resolution, you have to bring it by Tuesday next week. This resolution came today. It's not consistent. It's not consistent. We have a mural here and bringing this type of resolution. It's not consistent as well bringing a resolution today to respond to something that happened last Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jang, and I will take responsibility for that because as Council President can approve something coming on late, and in this situation, at the urging of a number of councilors, I decided that it was important enough to make an exception. So, Councilor Hartnett.
Thank you, President Wright. I couldn't agree more. There's some things that just really kind of trump procedures, and this would be one of them, right? This would be something that we would be speaking out on immediately, I hope. I'll take it a step further. The resolution is well meant, and I support it 100%, but actions are stronger than words. And as 12 members of the city that are leaders, it brings it upon ourselves to speak as leaders. And when we see or hear any of this going on in our community, it's important for us to speak out. And I know at times it's difficult, and maybe we don't think at that time it might be worth it, but at the end of the day, when something like this happens in our community, it is upon us to lead by example. And the resolution, which I fully support, well-written, quite honestly, I don't care if they would have submitted it at 6 o'clock tonight. That's how important I think it was for this to be in front of the council. That it just, especially after the week we just had, as Councilor Mason said, it just brings to light how important we are. We make decisions that we don't agree upon, and I understand that throughout the city. But this is when we all come together. This is what makes Burlington so special, right? That we don't allow this. We stand as one. Whether you agree with the park issue, whether you agree with the telecom issue, whether you agree with Church Street Marketplace issue, I understand that we're going to disagree with that and maybe have a different opinion. But this is where we should never disagree. This is where we should stand strong as one. No matter where you live, no matter what you think, no matter what you do, right? And if we don't, If we were to show weakness here, right, that would be a sad day in Burlington for me. That would be a very sad day. And as long as I've been a member of this community, which is my entire life, that is one thing I'm most proud of. That the people of this community stick together and denounce this hatred, which they should. So I'm proud that this resolution's here in front of us tonight. I'm proud of this council, and I'm proud of the people that live here in Burlington.
Thank you, Councilor Hartnett. Councilor Shannon.
Thank you, President Wright. This is an occasion that I think rises well above politics, and as Councilor Hartnett said, this is a time for us all to come together. And as Councilor Jang started out to say, an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. And I think it's very important that we all stand up together. That's why this resolution was brought, and it was brought late. And I appreciate President Wright. I think that you did what any council president would do in allowing a late resolution here. This is important to all of our community, to members at this table, and in the broader Burlington community, that we are standing up to take a stand and say we are not going to tolerate hate speech like this, an attack on our community members in this way. So thank you, and I'm glad that the full council has sponsored this, and I give my condolences, and I wish there was more that we could do. I wish there was something. This does not prevent what happened, but I think the show of unity is important, and we'll continue to do this whenever we see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Shannon. Any other councilor on this resolution? Hearing none, and I'll just add Councilor Mason, did you? Nope. Okay. Just a really brief comment to say that, of course, I agree as one of the sponsors and thank you for whoever wrote this and the group that put this together, that we absolutely should have zero tolerance for any kind of bigotry, hatred, racism, or anything else in the city of Burlington. So I'm glad this came forward, and I'm happy to have approved this coming on the agenda tonight. With that, all those in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I'm now going to recess the regular city council meeting to convene the Local Control Commission at 8:09. And with that, I will recognize Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. I would move our agenda, taking the actions indicated.
Seconded by Councilor Roof. Do you need the floor back for anything on that, Commissioner Dean?
Not on the agenda, no.
Okay.
And we have consent agenda after that.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have the agenda. Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. I would move that we adopt the consent agenda, taking the actions as indicated.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Roof. Any discussion? Hearing none, please, all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have passed the consent agenda. Item number 3, Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. I would move item 3.01, the approval of a 2018-2019 first-class restaurant, bar, and liquor license for Poco, 55 Main Street, with the following conditions. All city permits need to be closed out contingent upon fire marshal approval with all standard conditions. And after a second, I'd request the floor back.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Roof. Commissioner Roof. Commissioner Dean, you have the floor back.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. I just wanted to say a quick word that I think everyone is aware of the donut shop that closed down beyond where August 1st is. This is a new incarnation of a really, really nice restaurant, which includes a first-class liquor license, and we saw as a committee, we certainly wanted to support that and welcome a new business to that part of the street.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Dean. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of this, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item number 3.02, Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Asking your indulgence, I wonder if we could move 3.02 and 3.03 together because they're both addressing the same business.
Yes.
Okay.
We can deal with both of those at once.
Okay. So I will then move the approval of the 2019-2020 first-class restaurant, bar, and liquor license application and the 2019-2020 outside consumption permit application for Maya's Kitchen and Bar, 1130 North Avenue, with the following conditions. All city permits need to be closed out, contingent upon fire marshal approval, and request the floor back after a second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roof. Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. So this is an application for a liquor license and an outside consumption permit for Maya's Kitchen, which is located on North Avenue across from the Ethan Allen Shopping Center. It had been a Thai restaurant. Now it's changing its menu, but it is, I would like to point out that we're asking for a 2019-2020 license here, so this will not start until May. I have heard some concerns from other city councilors about the proximity of this to the neighborhoods. Our intent is to go back and request that the new owners of the restaurant do a little bit of work around the neighborhoods to advise them that what's going on and let them know, and if there are any concerns, they will come back to us. We have until May until they would actually start their operations serving liquor.
Thank you, Commissioner Dean. Any discussion? Councillor Jang and then Councillor Hartnett.
Yeah, so I just want, please, to clarify what you just said, if you don't mind, to repeat it clearly so we understand.
Please.
Please, Councillor Dean.
Commissioner Dean, could you?
Absolutely. That seems fine. You want me to clarify, or?
Please, yeah.
So what they're asking for is a 2019-2020 liquor license and an outside consumption permit. So they will not receive these, or they will not become active if we approve them tonight until May. So there have been some concerns expressed about outside consumption, and we'll be dealing with an entertainment permit later because this deck is relatively close. The outside deck is relatively close to residential areas. The trailer park that's located relatively close to this restaurant. So our intent is to go and in that time ask that the owner do some outreach to the neighbors and find out whether there are any concerns, explain what they're planning to do in terms of outside entertainment and consumption, and come back to us with any concerns. We have time to address it. Right, and one more thing that Commissioner Roof has mentioned to me is this is consistent with the use of this restaurant previously, so this has been permitted previously under another owner.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, thank you for clarifying that. And I was wondering when those concerns come to the committee. When did the concern come? While the previous owner was still operating it, or once?
No, this actually is, if I can respond to Commissioner Jang. This concern came because I reached out to one of the other city councilors and asked if they had concerns, and they expressed a desire that we do a little bit more outreach to the surrounding neighborhoods.
Councillor Jang, if you do you have a number? Do you have other questions?
No, I mean I think
the only thing we just don't normally go back and forth. So whatever you have, put it out there, and then I'll recognize Commissioner Dean to respond.
Yes. So I think, that specific restaurant used to be owned by a Nepali person, and the current owner was also staff there. And when we talk about, it's very close to the proximity of residential, I don't think if that is accurate, because the outside consumption is actually very close to the road, nothing to do with the kitchen or anything else. And if you look at it, even the house next door looks like it's not habitated. No one lives there. So, and also the other thing is the current owners, their English is very, very limited. And I think you and I and another leader on the New North End, we've been talking about this just yesterday through email. And I think you made a wonderful explanation because the current owners have English barriers, and also they even worried losing customers because they asking if it's even allowed for people to bring their own drinks. And yesterday you responded beautifully to that, and I think could you please take consideration into that to move it forward, and I will let maybe Dave. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Councillor Jang. I'm going to recognize Councillor Hartnett and then Commissioner Dean. Commissioner Hartnett and then Commissioner Dean can respond after.
I'll be brief. I'm not asking to stop this. What I am concerned about is, though, we have 3 new homes that are being built out there in the spring, which will be in the front of the property. And all I want them to do is to notify them. I want the outdoor permit. I think it would be great for the owners. I think it would be great for the new North End. I just want them to reach out to the neighbors and let them know, because it does sound like the previous owners, although had this permit, did not use the outdoor entertainment permit. These owners, I hope, are going to use it. I think it would be a benefit for our neighborhood, but just a courtesy to allow the neighbors that are close proximity, which is the mobile home neighborhood, which has just been remarkable success story in the new North End, and we're going to have a farmers market out there, and we're going to have food trucks out there, and it's just become a wonderful part of our community. And so I just want to make sure, out of respect for them, that we just at least identify what's going on, and that's all. So that was my conversation with Commissioner Dean tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartnett. Any other commissioner would like to make comments or questions before I turn it back over to the chair of the committee? Hearing none. Commissioner Dean, did you want to address any of the points that have been made?
I don't think I really have anything specific to say other than there were, just so everyone is aware, there were no other neighbors that appeared at our meeting that had any concerns. And I have to say that I thought that the English that was very good. It was quite understandable, and they did a very good job of presenting themselves in front of our committee. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dean. Are we set to vote? Commissioner Jang.
Yeah, so thank you, President. And I was just want to make sure then, since you did not receive specifically any concern from any neighborhood, and also what Councillor Harnett is referencing to, those 3 homes that they're saying will be built there is also not very close at all to that restaurant. And I think before we make any decision, I think the council or the committee need to go make the map and ask the people who live in that trailer park. We need to do our due diligence here, because I think it will be a huge mistake not giving them the permit and making them wait until May, because they are about to lose business. They knew and they need that in order to attract new customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jang. Commissioner Hartnett?
I just want to be clear, unless I misunderstood, this doesn't go into May on their own. We're not preventing it from going early, I don't believe. Commissioner Dean will probably address that, because I would not be in favor of either that, postponing. So I think it's right on time, but Commissioner Dean, maybe?
Commissioner Dean?
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. So we are not intending to, the motion that's on the floor grants all of the outside consumption permits and the liquor license for Maya. It just does not begin until May. Beg your pardon? And they requested that. That was not something that we asked them to do.
Oh.
Yeah. That's all.
Okay, thank you. So again, we are preparing to vote on this, and anything else would require a different motion. If someone did not want to take action, you need to have a motion to postpone. But hearing none, we are ready to vote. All those in favor of passing 3.02 and 3.03 together, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And item number 4 is
a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Roof. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. And I will reconvene the regular city council meeting and move ahead on the deliberative agenda to 5.01. and that is an indoor entertainment permit application for Maya's Kitchen and Bar. Counselor Dean. I was about to call you Commissioner Dean.
One moment, sorry. Okay, I would like to move the approval of the 2019-2020 indoor entertainment permit application for Maya's Kitchen and Bar, 1130 North Avenue, with the following conditions. All city permits need to be closed out with all standard conditions.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Dean and seconded by Counselor Roof. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item number 5.02, Counselor Dean.
Thank you, President Wright. I would move the approval of the 2019-2020 outdoor entertainment permit application for Maya's Kitchen and Bar, 1130 North Avenue, with the following conditions. All city permits need to be closed out with all standard conditions.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Counselor Roof. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And we will then now move on to item number 5.03, which is a public hearing and a presentation on and an update to Plan BTV. Megan, do you want to do the presentation and then we'll hold the public hearing after? And this is slated for about 10 to 15 minutes.
So we don't have a presentation, but we do have some material that we
Update.
provided to you in the agenda just to provide you with an update on the comments that we've received on the draft plan that we can talk about after the public hearing.
Okay. Any further comment before we open the public hearing? Okay, so we will open the public hearing on Plan BTV. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on Plan BTV? Going once, going twice, gone. And we will close out the public hearing and bring you back up.
Okay, thank you. I did speak to one gentleman before the meeting started that was here because he was interested in Plan B TV, and I just saw him leave. So hopefully the comments that we've received before tonight have made their way into board docs for you and are something that we can work through over the next few weeks to help us prepare another version of the draft plan for your consideration later this month. We have been working since we were here in January to make sure that residents are aware of the draft plan and to provide opportunities for them to provide input on that draft. We provided a document today on board docs that included all of the comments that we've received on that draft up to and including yesterday. So that's why it came to you just this morning. We wanted to make sure that we were able to incorporate all of the comments that we had received in that document. It's a lengthy document, but I think that it's something that as we dig into what the comments are that we've received on the plan are things that will help us to make additional refinements to this draft update to Plan BTV and will help us address a few kind of missing items that we can fill in and really round out the policies and actions that will guide us for the next 10 to 20 years. So I don't want to get into a lot of detail about what each of those comments were, but I wanted to share with you some of the nature of what some of those comments were and let you know that for each of the comments we've received, we've provided a recommended action for how those comments can be addressed in the next draft of the plan. We received a number of comments on the plan that were related to kind of clarifying the content of the plan or the context of an action item within it. A good example of this is about our future growth areas. And there are a number of future growth areas that are called out in the plan, each with their own character, their own emphasis in terms of what type and intensity of uses might be appropriate in the future. We received, through the Planning Commission Chair, a request to look at how one of those growth areas was referred to in the plan. Recognizing that our major transportation, our major thoroughfares in the city are one of the areas in the city where we anticipate some growth occurring. But recognizing that in the plan we referred to them as multimodal corridors, and that was causing some confusion for some residents, that provided some concern that we might be referring to, any street that has a bus route or a bike lane, that might be a growth area in the city. So we are able to address that concern and make some changes to the document to clarify that we're talking about those major thoroughfares, those major corridors into and out of the city that connect to the heart of the city. There are a couple other comments that we received that are really related to clarifying that content of the plan and making sure that it really says what we intend for it to say. In some cases, comments were related to making sure we're recognizing an element that might be missing. For example, we received some feedback from the Intervale Center that was supportive of the way that the section of the plan that talked about Riverside Avenue was written, but asked us to make sure that we recognize the Intervale Road study and the improvements that are recommended as part of that study when we think about the future of that part of our city. So just going back through and making sure that we've made those cross connections to other plans and studies that we've created with the residents of Burlington to make sure they're all reflected here. We did have a couple of new ideas that came up, and some of the comments that we received are related to making sure those ideas are represented in the plan. Last week, we had a workshop here in Contois that was all about asking people in their own words what it meant for them to think about us actually implementing Plan BTV. If they could identify a project or a program or a specific action that we could take that would help us to implement this plan, what would it be? We were really glad to see that a lot of the ideas that were brought up were things that we had heard from residents in previous meetings and conversations that were already represented in the plan. But there were a few ideas that came out of that meeting as well that we want to make sure are updated and represented in this document. Particularly one thing related to community engagement and involvement, better recognizing partnerships and opportunities for collaboration among different organizations and city government to help us actually implement our plan. And then finally, as these things go, we have a number of items that are just related to helping us correct some typos and other small errors that exist throughout the plan. So that is the document that we shared with you tonight, today, all of the comments that we've received on the plan. We'll be working on making those modifications according to the recommendations that we provided in that document about how to update the document to reflect them. And then we're looking forward to actually, putting that plan back out there. Putting it back out for public review and for your review in anticipation of a second public hearing and your consideration for the readoption of this update to the plan. We are here asking for your input as well on what you are comfortable with in terms of setting a date for that second public hearing and that consideration of adoption so that we can plan accordingly for making sure the document is ready for that date.
Any other comments?
I think Megan did a good job on that. Thank you.
So what's on the table right now for the next date that's proposed would be February 19th?
So what we can do is if the council would like to have an additional conversation about the edits that were suggested to make to the document, we can return on the 19th to answer any questions or continue that discussion. Otherwise, the next step is to warn a second public hearing, which we can do at either of the meetings in March, the 11th or the 25th, depending on what your level of comfort is with that, when you would like to have that.
All right. Councilor Busher?
So in order, I don't know all of the comments that were made and how significant they are to the plan and what that means for your rework. But in order to allow the public an opportunity to look at how how you've responded to the comments you've received. I would favor having the second, President Wright, I'd favor the second public hearing being on March 11th, if that's the date you stated, with adoption the following meeting, because I think, once again, if there's an aha moment on March 11th, that would once again give a little bit of time to address that before the final adoption, which seems to work with the timeline that you've put forward. So that's what I'm looking for. I'd like to give the public a chance, for those who haven't been engaged, to kind of get that on their radar so that they know and have a chance to comment on the overall plan, and then we'll adopt it. That's the timeline that seems appropriate to me. So thank you.
Councillor Jang?
Thank you, President. But this is just a quick question, because I received great comments about the plan, actually, and I don't know if you guys received it. And it was just accidental in a house party, house party, and because I told people the new North End will actually have a Plan BTV. It's going to come along the line. Like neighborhoods, I was like, no, just North Avenue. And they looked at it and, so many great, wonderful ideas. And I was wondering if we can use the NPAs moving forward instead of just the council meeting to have a warm public comment session. Because I know you present at each of the NPAs, but is it possible to come back to say, now we just want to gather your thoughts? And that way, I'll make sure that those people will, attend, or, things like that.
So if I could speak to that, Mr. President, as well as Councilor Busher's suggestion, what's important to keep in mind is that this plan will expire at the end of March, so it needs to be readopted before that time. So if you hold your second public hearing on March 11th, you would not be able to make changes to it and then warn a final public hearing by the 25th, I think, is the second meeting in March. If any changes that you make to the plan will then trigger the requirement for a new public hearing. So in setting up this schedule, Megan tried to make sure that there's enough time for you to consider the comments, reflect on them, get more comments before pushing that second public hearing, which could be, that second public hearing could be the 25th of March with action concurrent. That would give more time to consideration of the comments we've received thus far, and perhaps to gather more. But what's important to understand is that final public hearing is to hear any final comments and to then adopt it. You could then, of course, undertake consideration of changes going forward, but in order to keep the plan in effect and all of the powers and responsibilities that are associated with that plan, it needs to be readopted by the end of March.
So if we chose that option, it would just mean acting concurrently, as you said, on the final meeting in March.
And that could give us just, until next week to, as David said, to review those comments and identify whether there are any additional comments, edits that we would like to make to the plan before we warn that second public hearing.
Thanks.
As far as coming to the NPAs, if the North End NPA would like to have us there to, present the plan again or take any comments on the plan, we'd be happy to be in touch with the NPA steering committee to talk about, when that would work for them in the next month.
Thank you. Any other counselor? Are we good with that timeline? The timeline would be that you would come back on the February 19th meeting, and we would then have the public hearing on March 11th.
On March 25th, is that, or do we want to do them concurrent or separate?
Councilor Busher?
So I just need to make a statement about this. I think it's misleading to have a public hearing and then really not want to not take action on anything you hear from the public. I understand the process and I can't change the process, but it does beg to say, what's wrong with this process, you know? And I appreciate, thank you, David, for making the clarification. So I'm not wedded to one date or the other based on what I just realized. However, I feel for the public, and me included, the second public hearing does bring up what's the purpose of that hearing if you can't really make change from it. I mean, what's the purpose? So I think that, so I don't care, President Wright, which March date we use if we have to act concurrently, because there's not enough time to modify the plan once again before March 31st.
Well, so what's the option to not acting concurrently? Councilor Shannon?
Thank you, President Wright. Would it be, I mean, we have had a public hearing tonight and we didn't actually hear anything from the public. Would it be acceptable to warn the public hearing for March 11th, make a motion to warn the public hearing for March 11th? That then gives us an opportunity, if we hear something from the public that we feel needs to be acted on, we could postpone action to March 25th. And if it has been fairly well vetted, I think, across the city at all of the NPAs and through other means at this point, so it's also possible we won't hear anything, and if we don't, we could act on it March 11th. That would be, I would offer that as an informal proposal and make the motion if it seems to be.
That's what I was thinking, but does that work?
One thing that just to be aware of is just timelines for warning public hearings. So if we want to schedule for the March 11th as a tentative second public hearing and concurrent adoption, we can certainly go ahead with that. We have time to make that warning. If for some reason at that meeting the council was not feeling ready to adopt and wanted to warn a third public hearing, we would need to probably consider doing a special meeting in order to have that third hearing before the plan expires. Just because the public hearing has to be warned 15 days prior to the hearing.
Councilor Shannon?
I was not suggesting a third public hearing, but rather postponing action.
Okay, understanding that if we postpone action, making any additional changes to the plan as a result of that public hearing or the postponed action will necessitate a third public hearing.
So then the purpose of the public hearing seems to be to, if there was something dire that came up, we couldn't then adopt it. We have a somewhat of a crisis because the public process has really happened in advance of that public hearing. So I would make a motion to, if it's appropriate, President Wright, to warn a public hearing for March 11th.
A motion has been made, seconded by Councilor Pine, to warn the public hearing for March 11th. And Councilor Pine?
I just have to add, this is based on past experience. I worked with a couple municipalities that had plans that lapsed for a very brief period, and there is no significant consequence in my experience of having a 10 or 15-day lapse period, because at least in those cases they used, and in those cases those plans were actually quite lapsed, and they actually said, let's just revert to the plan that was in effect that most previously. So I just want to ask if staff could address that, of whether it's really a big risk of having a 15 or 20-day period where you have a lapsed municipal development plan.
Want to respond to that?
As far as reverting to a plan, the plan that's currently in effect is our 2014 municipal development plan. And that plan is what it actually expires at the end of March of this year. So I'm not sure what we would fall back on if that plan did lapse. We would have, in effect, no plan at that time. The reason why having the plan readopted before the expiration deadline is important is because certain powers that the city has rely on that plan being in effect. Things like being able to amend our zoning ordinance, things like being able to assess impact fees, a few other tools that are kind of essential, especially to the work that the Planning Department and Planning Commission do. I don't know if either of you have experience with a plan lapsing, essentially. in
Not
Burlington.
in my experience, but the most tangible things are our ability to assess impact fees as well as to amend the ordinance during the time that it has lapsed. But there is not an allowance, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, for us to simply readopt the old plan as a stopgap measure, because this plan will expire.
Thank you, Councilor Pine. So we will try to avoid having the plan lapse. And there's a motion on the floor to warn the public hearing for March 11th. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's what how we will proceed.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you. Item 5.05 is ratification of the tentative agreement and authorization to execute the collective bargaining agreement with the Burlington Firefighters Association. Mayor Weinberger, did you want to speak first on this?
Sure, President Wright. I will, well, at this point, just want to make sure the full council is updated that the Board of Finance, as is our practice, met in executive session to discuss, to get an updated briefing on the contract which you've all received, and the Board of Finance voted unanimously 5-0 to recommend approval. Our hope is that councilors feel ready to act at this point, but if we have reserved the right of going into executive session if it's necessary to do so before taking the step of making the contract public and taking the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Nodell?
President Wright, I move to waive the reading and adopt the resolution.
Councilor Nodell has moved and Councilor Busher has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion?
I still have the floor, I believe.
You do still have the floor,
Thank
Councilor
you.
Nodell.
Board of Finance did discuss in executive session in a fair amount of detail what it took to bring this contract together. This was the last one, I think, to settle. And the mayor got involved at the very end of it. And I think that city attorney and the team did a good job. And it does, I think, set us up for resolving over the next 4 years some major issues around staffing and ambulance service.
Thank you, Councilor Nodell. Councilor Hartnett.
Thank you. A couple things on this. I am glad that there'll be talk of an ambulance, I hope, on the ballot in 2020. And I know in a sense it was part of this. And I think the people of the New North End have asked for that for a while, and they want that. And I think we should be able to deliver that. We talk about a safer North Avenue. We hear it all the time, right? And part of that is public, public safety, and it's just not the road itself. It's safer North Ave is how quick is ambulance service nearby if there is an accident there, and how long it takes to get there. And many times I see the University of Vermont ambulance come traveling down North Ave, and I often wonder, when we have the station right there, why is that? So I'm hoping to see that. The other thing I'm just a little discouraged at, I brought this up before, I hate to see the difference in the starting salary between police and fire be so different. I think it is a gap. I don't want to pit one against the other, right? I want to be able to have them both be fairly compensated. But we I think at times look at fire and maybe don't think it's as dangerous, or there's not as many calls, or it puts them in there. But every time you go into a smoke-filled room with that mask on, and we've hearing more and more reports about the toxics and the cancer substance that they're liable to get, is that it's a very, very dangerous job. When you think about it like that. So we have an outstanding police force. We have an outstanding fire department here in Burlington. We're very fortunate. And I just want to make sure that we look at them as equal, always. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hartnett. Any other councillor? Councillor Jang.
Yep, but I wanted to recognize the Chief of Fire Department who's here, Mr. Lark. Thank you. And I did not know he's actually a resident of the New North End until we met maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And I think I was just impressed by the great work that they do every single day, these men and women. And I visited also the fire station in the New North End, asked a bunch of questions. And now in front of me, we have this bargaining that we need to ratify today. And I'm just thinking clearly, like about the next mayor of this city. He will be or she will be in big trouble because we cannot continue like this. We will allow this to go for 4 years, and then again, we need to come back, right? These bargainings are taking place where any member of the city council are present. We know the mayor is elected by resident of this city. The mayor appoints the city attorney. But at the same time, right, none of us sit to those. And I feel like that this administration is doing the right thing, but none of us. I think the way moving forward is the district city councils need to be full-time, need to weigh on everything that's going on in this city, because it is getting harder and harder and harder for the people, for people like me, for people who work and pay taxes. It is getting overwhelming, to tell you the truth, right? But at the same time, I feel like what Dave said. All we're talking about is we need an ambulance in the New North End. And I mean, it's already public, but I don't know if we're really going to have it. And I do really hope that we have it. Want to appreciate everyone, but let's just think about also the people who pay for all of this. It's getting harder and harder. But now, who's going to be the next mayor in the next 4 years? I don't envy you, him, or her. Yeah, but thank you, and we'll definitely support this to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jang. Councillor Pine.
I also wanted to give the administration and the firefighters union some kudos, because I think this could have gone. It could have been more difficult in the end. I mean, it really suggests that both sides, in the best spirit of good faith bargaining, were able to come to an agreement that meets the needs of the city, of the taxpayer, and of our fire department and the firefighters. And I want to recognize that we have a new president, I believe, of the local here. If he would introduce himself to the council, I think that'd be a good thing. So I just want to ask the president if we could hear from our local president.
Just so that Channel 17 can hear.
Thank you, Councillor Pine. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Kyle Blake. I'm a member of the Burlington Firefighters Association and just recently became the new president of the Burlington Firefighters Association. I appreciate all the work that this council has done to support us and to move this forward. And I would echo Councillor Pine's comments that this was a group effort to bring this forward to you tonight. I appreciate the mayor coming and sitting down with us, making it happen at our last bargaining session. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pine. And of course, we all very much appreciate all of our firefighters. Are we ready for the vote? Okay, all those in favor of ratification of the contract, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. That moves us to item 5.06, which is an ordinance, comprehensive development ordinance. I will recognize Councillor Roof on this as the chair of ordinance is going to be, are you going to be having to, in fact, I might as well recognize you now for that, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, President Wright. I would just like to note for the record that I will, under our conflict of interest policy, will not be participating in consideration of the amendment due to a professional conflict of interest.
And when this, I think the idea is this is going to go back to ordinance, and I will need to appoint someone to sit in for you on this particular matter.
That is correct. If the intention is by that group to take this up prior to the election, then yes, you would need to. If it's not going to be taken up until after the election, I think it would be
My
incumbent.
expectation would be after the election.
So my assumption is we should have this conversation after the election.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, President Wright. I also have a professional conflict of interest in addressing this question, so I will recuse myself on this as well.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Now, Councillor Roof, you have the floor.
All right, I don't have a conflict, so I'm going to pinch hit. And I'll move 506, which was 416 on consent. And this is comprehensive development ordinance looking at commercial use in the ELM, which is light manufacturing zone for those watching at home. This is coming from the Planning Department and Planning Commission. The motion being consider this first reading and refer it to the Ordinance Committee. After a second, the floor back for a moment, please.
Seconded by Councillor Jang. And Councillor Roof, you have the floor back.
Actually, just take a moment to see if any staff would like to come up to speak to this. David White, maybe? Ms. Tuttle?
Megan Tuttle.
Pinch hit for the pinch hitter, sort of thing.
So this amendment is coming to you from the Planning Commission with recommendation from the Planning Commission. It emerged from a number of requests that our department and the Planning Commission have received recently to consider a number of changes to the Enterprise Light Manufacturing Zoning District regarding the types of commercial uses that are allowed in various parts of the district. So you'll see in the amendment that we consider uses such as banks, which are not currently permitted, and a number of changes related to preserving and protecting manufacturing industrial type uses, as well as provisions related to arts, performing arts venues.
Councillor Roof?
That's all.
All set? Councillor Shannon.
Thank you. I asked for this to be taken off the consent agenda because I thought it would be helpful as I went to Ordinance Committee to raise some issues for the Ordinance Committee that I've been hearing at NPA meetings and other community meetings about, in particular about the change to light manufacturing to allow a performance venue. And the concerns are not really so much about noise coming out of the venue as, you know, we believe that they have incentive to contain the noise inside the venue. But there is concern in the neighborhood about noise because everybody exits a performance venue at the same time. And if they're exiting, you know, late at night, in particular, that's really a problem for the neighbors. And I think it's not appreciated that there actually are many neighbors in this area. There's a tree line, and just beyond the tree line, there are a lot of neighbors that are affected by the existing manufacturing uses, and they have been working with their industrial neighbors over the years to address concerns, and I think that they have done that well. But what we're asking here is for them to take on a new issue that was not what they were expecting when they purchased those homes. And so the issues that they have raised are, one, the noise of people coming out all at once after being in a concert venue and having, you know, concert venues are loud and often people coming out of them are loud. Also the traffic, there's only one, well, there's two ways out, but one of them is a one-lane bridge, which is problematic for, you know, a large exodus of vehicles all at one time over a one-lane bridge. And the other route out is very much through the neighborhood. The hours of operation, it really kind of extends what the traditional hours of the industrial neighborhood are. And then lastly, that this is an area that we have tried to preserve for jobs, and we have allowed a lot of uses over the years, and I certainly advocated for those uses. You know, when we did the zoning rewrite in 2007, 2008, We allowed new uses that were not allowed previously, like office space, like dance studios and cafes, and none of these things, and restaurants, none of them had been previously allowed, and I think it has really enhanced the zone, but those things should be in support of the jobs that we want to have within the city limits, and we don't have a lot of space to have them. So I think that that needs to be evaluated as you're looking at this. So I really honestly don't have an opinion, yes or no, but want to make sure that that the neighbors are aware of the meetings, that they're invited to the meetings, that it's well noticed, and I will certainly do what I can to do that if you give me some alerts about the meetings, and that these issues that I have mentioned are considered as you're deliberating the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Shannon. Any other comments, discussion on this? Hearing none. So we are ready to vote, and this sends it back to the Ordinance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Two abstentions.
With unanimously, but with 2 recusals. It still passes unanimously, but with 2 recusals. That brings us to what was removed from the consent agenda item 4.07, which is now item 5.07, and that was removed by Councilor Jang. And this is on the consent agenda. It was a communication from Assistant City Attorney Hassler regarding the TIF district reports to the Vermont Economic Progress Council. City Attorney Hassler?
I'm not sure. This communication occurs annually. It's statutorily required, as my communication indicated. It's for purposes of presenting VEPSI with basic data as to each of the TIF districts. It has to be certified by John Vickery and myself regarding things like increment, debt incurred, expenditures, jobs created. It is then presented to the City Council annually simply because it's a transparent document, and our way of certifying it includes presenting it to the municipal legislative body. It then goes on to the mayor as the lead municipal official to certify and get submitted. So the report says January 15th. We did submit it by January 15th. Then we go through back and forth with VEPSI to make sure that all of our numbers line up with their numbers. When they're satisfied that everything's fine, they ask us to put it in front of the municipal legislative body and resubmit it by February 15th. And that's why I'm here. That's why I put in the communication. There's actually no action for the council to take. It's all part of our administrative duties as in one role or another on behalf of the city. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Jang, the President's recused himself for a second. So Councilor Jang, you have questions for Mr. Hassler?
Thank you, Acting President Mason. So, Richard, as you know, I'm one of the newest, and I have documents that are like this, and I think that I'm going to give them to so that she can look at them for me. I haven't got a chance to get into. But this is something that it was just a conversation yesterday with 2 constituents, just out of the blue, like this, about the agenda. And questions came up about what is TIF, where TIF come from, very basic. And I'm like, for the record, I think it will be important because you asking me this, I cannot give you the clear answer, but I think the professional who will talk about this will be able to just explain to the people here what is TIF and why do we talk about TIF, downtown TIF, we're talking about waterfront TIF. Can you make an explanation to how all of this works, please?
Well, I can. It's a relatively complex financing tool that is nationwide. It has a few unique wrinkles in the state of Vermont. I think that over the years, we have worked hard to keep the taxpayers informed as to the nature of TIF and how we use it. We have regularly presented informational sessions to the City Council pretty much annually, at least annually, and with updates, I think, with each time we go out to a vote. I mean, I feel as if this administration, and having served the prior administration as well, and I suspect administrations before that, have really worked hard to explain how this works. And I'm always available to answer any specific questions, but to try to give like a nutshell primer on TIF without context, I think it would be easier to just invite your constituents to call the city attorney's office, ask Richard Hessler if I'm not there, or they can email me, and I'll try to respond to questions if there's really an education that needs to occur.
Councilor Pine?
Yeah, I think the best resource is actually CEDO's website. There's an incredible section in great detail about what TIF is, what it isn't, and how the waterfront TIF and the downtown TIF, why there's two, why they're different. There's different laws authorizing one versus the other. So there's City Attorney Hessler's correct. It's extremely complicated, but the most simple concept is cities use the incremental tax growth, I'm just answering the question if I could, to finance public infrastructure to enable development that otherwise would not occur. That's basically what we're doing, and not passing that on to the current taxpayer, but taking the growth in value. So I just wanted to state that so that it's clear, but the CEDO website really goes into great detail about what it is. I think it's a great resource.
The famous but-for test.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Councilor Pine, for pulling me out of that.
Any other councilor? Hearing none. Councilor Nodell.
I'll just move to accept the communication and place it on file. And I'll thank Councilor Jang for pulling this off. I mean, I think it is important for the council to track this and to kind of make sure that the TIF districts are performing as planned. And because the TIF revenue is needed to service the debt that was issued under taxpayer approval. And let me just ask one question too, which is, and it could be for CAO Anderson as well, are these two TIF districts, the waterfront TIF district and the downtown TIF district, performing well?
I can indicate that we have done annual projections and we continue to...
Can you pull the microphone in a little closer?
We continue to meet all of our obligations with surplus in both districts and the projections over time for our existing debt obligations, even under conservative estimates, indicate that we're projected to have a surplus at the end, given what we've got presently obligated.
CAO Anderson, did you have anything to add to that?
Very briefly, we are working on an update to the update we provided last spring, so you will see some more detail from us in the coming months.
Okay, great.
Finally, one other last comment in response to Councilor Nodell.
The Vermont Economic Progress Council has its own website, and they compile all these reports, and then they issue their own annual report, and they're fairly helpful. They actually have a section for each of the TIF districts going back over the years, and you can sort of track the growth. And I mean, I think that's what they use these reports for. But it's helpful for anybody to look at and see over time and not get too bogged down in too much information. It's manageable.
Thank you.
All right, I think we have a motion to, was it seconded? Seconded by Councilor Hartnett, to accept the communication placed on file. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to item number 6, which is committee reports. Any committee chair who wants to report on activity to the council? Councilor Hartnett.
Thank you. Want to let everyone know the package meeting on the 13th, Wednesday, weather permitting, and to move first stage of Moran forward, which I think has been received well. We had a great public meeting here at Contois, great input. I think there's excitement, and I think hopefully this will be back in front of the entire council, Board of Finance first, and then the entire council soon, within the next few weeks. We've heard different opinions, but most of the opinions that we've gotten on the new Moran has been positive, and I think we're in a great place, and we'll move forward on that. But if the PAC meeting is on the 13th, 5:30, conference room 12, last I knew, unless there was a change. And then one other thing that I'm going to kind of overstep here, because I didn't see the chair raise his hand down over there, but the CD&R committee met this past week, and I just really want to bring this up because this is close and dear to my heart. The early initiative reading program, from a year ago to now, it's just an incredible spot. Brian Lowe has done an amazing work. We got a great update this past week. It is a program that is really going to make a difference in closing the achievement gap with Burlington kids, and it's going to really have a major impact on Burlington kids, and that was the main focus when we started this whole initiative, right? The $500,000 grant was we wanted to reach Burlington families and families that we weren't reaching. And I think Brian has done amazing work. CDR has done amazing work with him. And the update that we got, we're well on our way. I'm hoping for a presentation in front of the whole council by the end of March. Hopefully my last meeting, I talked to Brian about that. And so it would be great if we could do that. It's really been inspiring to kind of go through this process and see it kind of really come to light. So I just wanted to pass that on as good news to the council. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Hartnett. Any other committee chair? Councilor Pine.
Sure. Councilor Hartnett stole half of my thunder, but I'll finish the rest of the meeting of the Community Development Neighborhood Revitalization. We had a brief report on the, what I think is the first, Mayor could correct me, but I think the equity report that's in draft form is a first, I believe, for the city, and it's pretty impressive. It's, I think, a really important topic for us to get a presentation on as well, and I did share that with Brian Lowe that I think the full council would benefit greatly, and the community. I know it's a lot of extra work, but I think NPAs would really be interested in this material. The equity report is a really data-driven measure of how we're actually doing closing opportunity gaps, achievement gaps, affordable housing, livable wages. It really touches on everything that I think we care about for building a strong community and maintaining a strong community and giving people the best chance to reach their full potential. It's a really impressive piece of work. So that was presented, as well as the Early Learning Initiative, which I think I have it right that by the end of March, the request for proposals will go out, and it will be the launch of the scholarship program, which will expand the opportunity for families, for kids. They will serve a certain number through a lottery system is the current proposal, and I think that's probably the best approach. Obviously, it will leave some families unserved, I think, in the end. So that's just a challenge. We have to redouble our efforts because I think that's, we can only meet so much of the need, but I think it does speak a lot for what we're trying to do to close that gap for children from families that otherwise wouldn't have that early learning opportunity. And then the accessory dwelling units was the other topic discussed, and we have our work cut out for us to do ordinance changes to accommodate, to allow for and enable more development or increased development of accessory dwelling units as both a source of low-cost housing because it's much less expensive to produce, but also a way to stabilize people's homes so they can continue to afford their homes, stay in their homes, and age in place in this community, which I think we would all agree is a priority. So I think that's another really exciting development coming out of CEDO and planning. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Pine. Any other committee chair? Hearing none, we'll close item number 6 out, and item number 7 is City Council on General City Affairs. Any councilor on General City Affairs? Councilor Dean.
Thank you, President Wright. I just wanted to share a little bit about our second Burlington Wildways Summit, which happened Wednesday of last week, just prior to our implicit bias training in the afternoon. And just for folks out there who aren't aware, this is a coalition of the Burlington Conservation Board, the Winooski Valley Park District, the Burlington Parks Recreation and Waterfront Department, the Rock Point Episcopal Diocese of Vermont, and the Intervale Center, who were enabled by a City Council resolution passed in 2017 and charged with developing a plan to link the open and wild lands that exist in Burlington. And we've been working together as a coalition, meeting on a monthly basis through the 2 years now. We had our second summit out at Rock Point last week. It was an opportunity to get together and reconvene all of the stakeholders who control lands around the city and talk about a vision for the future. It was a really great day and appreciated that there were many, many people who showed up there, including representatives from the University of Vermont, the State of Vermont Natural Resources. We had a student there who was representing the Lake and City semester. There are some great voices in the room. And we are now at the point where we've made progress that we can actually stand up a website. So that website is up and running now. This will be a place where Burlingtonians can go to find out what resources are available in terms of getting out and enjoying the wild and natural lands that surround us here in Burlington. We are also anticipating a rollout of our first signed trail, which will lead from Salmon Hole all the way to Ethan Allen Park, and that will be starting this summer. There are many other projects envisioned. So it was a great day, a real invigorator and kind of reestablishing the places that we're headed. And for the City Council, I have some stickers with our new logos. I've been trying to hand them out, but for those who don't have one, I'll just send these around. We're really looking forward to a great year where we're actually going to engage and let people get out there in the wild. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dean. Any other councilor on General City Affairs? Hearing none. Before I go to the mayor, just one quick comment, which is just to thank everybody for helping keep the secret tonight from Councilor Busher. And really, thanks everybody for chipping in on that. And thank you, Councilor Hartnett, for all the work on getting the cake down here and keeping it hidden and all the rest. And Councilor Busher, we now will expect you to exceed the 50 years on the hospital at the City Council. Mr. Mayor, take us home.
Excellent, President Wright. Thank you. I'm going to touch on 3 items. I'd like to just say a word more about the Burlington Wildways Summit last week. I want to talk about the pretty remarkable Change the Story event that happened up on the university campus last week, and then just a little bit of a summary of where we are now that we've passed the Fires Association contract tonight with respect to overall collective bargaining. Make sure the council and the public's clear on that. The Wild Ways Summit was really exciting to attend. I was at the first summit a year ago. To come back a year later and see the room again filled with energy and clarity about what the group has been and is going to be working on in the months ahead was really quite exciting. It did, for me, provide a moment to kind of take a step back to and think about many of the initiatives we are working on, which may seem disparate, but which I think are really quite coherent and fit in with each other well. And it also goes to the other item that we've been talking about tonight, the Plan BTV Municipal Development Plan, which I think captures a lot of what was talked about at the summit and what I was going to address here. We have had a lot of push as a council, as a city in recent years towards creating additional housing, particularly in the downtown, and that conversation is far from over. We have more work to do there. We have also had a big push together towards investing in our parks, expanding our park system, expanding the preservation of important parcels of open space. I think sometimes these initiatives seem very different from each other and almost as if they are in tension with each other, perhaps to some people. From my perspective, they are very much complementary and critical and really speak to how we are going to continue to be the city we hope to be, that we are today, and even improve the quality of life that we enjoy here in the future while continuing to grow, is simultaneous with that growth and the creation of new homes to also be investing in and expanding our natural areas and public access to those natural areas. We've really done a huge amount of that together. When you think about the new 12-acre park at Cambrian Rise, when you think about the design and investment in new parks resources in the urban reserve, when you think about the new park that will be opening this summer on the west side of the water plant, when you think about the conservation easements put in place with the city, active participation and partnership at the Arms Forest and Rock Point, it's really been an era of substantially increased open space investment and expansion. And what the Wild Ways effort ensures is that Burlingtonians fully understand and are aware of the huge opportunities that are open to them. It is very unusual to have 50% of a city open and have 25% of a city dedicated to natural areas. That is what we have and enjoy, and I think many of those areas are underutilized and not well known to the great majority of Burlingtonians. This Wild Ways effort, I think really, that was initiated by council resolution and which is picking up steam, I think really has the opportunity to expand that understanding and really capture the imagination of Burlingtonians in the same way that the Appalachian Trail or the Long Trail has captured the imagination of Vermonters and led to much greater use of those resources. I think we have a chance to do that here and want to compliment the council, and particularly Councilor Dean on his leadership on this issue. Change the story. There was an event up at the university last week that included almost approximately 500 people. About 70% of the participants were men. It was a call for men to engage in continued active work and progress towards gender equity in the workplace. And it was a remarkable event in a number of ways, and included, and it was led by really two organizations. One of them, Burlington organization, Change the Story, which is led by two Burlingtonians, Tiffany Bloomley and Jessica Nordhaus, and want to just remind the council that the city continues to have an active engagement with that effort, both by being an active member, and we send department heads to participate in numerous Change the Story events, and we had a large delegation at this event. We also continue to house Change the Story in the BED offices, something that we've done since the reorganization down there, created some excess space. So exciting effort that is ongoing, and encourage the public to continue paying attention to it. Finally, just a couple notes about the collective bargaining. So with tonight's unanimous vote, combined with the firefighters, as I understand it, near unanimous ratification of the contract, this successfully concludes the fourth of our four collective bargaining contracts. All four of these contracts are 4-year contracts, which is certainly a relief to the team that has been working on this, that this is something that we do not now have to focus on for some time. I hope the council shares the administration's sense that of pride in these contracts. We have found a way both to, we think, do right by our employees, as reflected by the fact that all of these contracts, none of them were imposed, none of them were imposed by arbitrators. They were all collectively bargaining. And at the same time, these are not just sort of caretaker contracts. These are contracts where we grappled with key operational issues and key financial issues, including continued strengthening of and increased employee participation in both our health care systems and our pension systems. And I want to thank our team that worked so hard on these, particularly the City Attorney Eileen Blackwood, who has been the point person on both of the past two collective bargaining rounds. All 8 contracts in those bargaining rounds settled without going to arbitration. As I understand it, and members of the table know better than me, but I think that was quite rare and really speaks to the hard work and the commitment to finding common ground and candor and preparation that Eileen conducted herself with and inspired the whole team to perform in that manner. And it's a great accomplishment, and we hope that it sets a foundation for continued progress in partnership with our city employees over the next 4 years. A couple final notes on this. One, just because there's some confusion, someone watching at home tonight might have a hard time understanding the discussion of the ambulance. This is a significant element of the firefighters' contract, is that there will be a proposal for a third ambulance will go to the voters in town meeting day 2020. And we agree with some other sentiment that it is, the city has reached the point where a third ambulance may well be necessary, and the voters will get to weigh in on that and be the ultimate determiner of that in approximately a year. And we are starting the work towards phasing that in with the approval of this contract. And then finally, to my colleagues on the council, I want to just make it clear that we have heard the point made that perhaps in the future some councilors would want to see a new approach to collective bargaining with councilor involvement in different ways. This administration, tries to listen very carefully when such input is made, and if that is a broadly felt sentiment, maybe in the debriefing of this round in the weeks and months ahead, we could talk about what that would look like in the future. Certainly, I think there are good reasons for the way in which we negotiate the contracts that we do, and we have certainly not ignored comments made suggesting that we do it differently. If that is a topic which a broad set of councilors would like to discuss, we'd be happy to do so. So with that, President Wright, thank you for the opportunity, and that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn at 9:24. Moved by Councilor Nodell, second by Councilor Roof. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And we are adjourned at 9:24.